I had just transmigrated into the Emperor of Dakian when the crown prince knelt in the main hall. Imperial Father, your son wishes to marry Jiao Jiao as crown princess, to be a devoted couple for life. I beg Imperial Father to grant us this. I nodded slightly, a smile on my face. I hadn't realized this son of mine was such a devoted romantic. Quite progressive thinking. Just as I was about to give my assent, I saw the crown prince and the little eunuch next to him begin to flirt playfully. Jiao Jiao, look, Imperial Father is smiling. He must be about to approve our marriage. I promised to give you a proper status, and I will certainly keep my word. Stop pouting, or I'll go back and kiss you senseless. What the? This delicate-looking little eunuch in front of me, is that Jiao Jiao? And he still wants to be a devoted couple for life? Is this some kind of two-male lead BL novel? I immediately flew into a rage. Guards, take this little eunuch away and behead him. Soon, a flood of memories instantly poured into my mind. It turned out the crown prince already had a crown princess, Lu Xiaoxiao, the legitimate daughter of Duke Rong, and it was a marriage personally decreed by me. Duke Rong's family was full of loyal martyrs. All the men of his household had died on the battlefield, leaving only Lu Xiaoxiao as their sole descendant. The original emperor wasn't considered a foolish ruler either. Naturally, he treated Duke Rong's sole descendant with great favor, personally bestowing her hand in marriage to the crown prince. Unexpectedly, on the wedding day, this eunuch named Jiao Jiao jumped into a lake, attempting suicide. The crown prince abandoned the hall full of guests and his new wife, personally jumping into the lake to fish the person out, then carried him and ran straight to the Eastern Palace chambers. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. Duke Rong's family's dignity was utterly trampled. Lu Xiaoxiao, in her grand red wedding gown, stood alone in the main wedding hall. She listened to the guests' whispers, tightly clutching the handkerchief in her hand. That night, the crown prince even left his crown princess to sleep alone. Instead, he spent the entire night comforting this little eunuch named Jiao Jiao. Although the original emperor was furious, he was, after all, his own son, so he merely confined the crown prince to his residence. Unexpectedly, 3 months later, Lu Xiaoxiao died from illness. The original emperor had long since investigated and uncovered the truth. Lu Xiaoxiao's life in the Eastern Palace was worse than that of a servant. All the valuables in the Eastern Palace were given by the crown prince to this young eunuch named Jiao Jiao. Lu Xiaoxiao and the young eunuch met by chance in the garden. Before the crown prince arrived, the young eunuch slapped himself and slandered the crown princess. Ignoring the crown princess's pleas, the crown prince ordered his servants to slap her 100 times in return. Lu Xiaoxiao, Jiao Jiao is so kind. How could you treat him like this? I never thought you, the esteemed legitimate daughter of Duke Rongwo, could be so malicious. Aren't you just jealous of how well I treat Jiao Jiao? Guards, make this jealous woman kowtow to Jiao Jiao and admit her mistake. Slap her face 100 times to teach her a good lesson. From then on, the crown princess fell ill and never recovered. The crown prince condoned the young eunuch poisoning her medicine, thus ending the crown princess's life. After learning the truth, the original emperor was overcome with rage, collapsing to the ground and fainting. Just then, I transmigrated. As soon as my words fell, for sword-wielding guards arrived menacingly. The young eunuch was so frightened that he lost all color and his whole body trembled. The crown prince panicked and quickly shielded the young eunuch. Imperial Father, you do understand love. Don't you also only dote on the Empress? Your son loves Jiao Jiao. I only want Jiao Jiao. If Imperial Father insists on executing Jiao Jiao, then I, your son, don't want this position as Crown Prince. After speaking, the Crown Prince bowed deeply and heavily kowtowed to the ground. Otherwise, Imperial Father might as well execute your son along with him. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall fell into a deathly silence. All the civil and military officials in the court were scared out of their wits. Not one dared to breathe loudly. This was blatant coercion. The original emperor was also a love-struck simp, with a harem of 3,000, yet doting solely on the empress. Therefore, he only had one son, the crown prince, and one daughter, the princess. The crown prince was born to the empress. The princess, however, was born after the original emperor, in a drunken state, slept with a concubine. For this, the empress caused a huge scene. Soon after the concubine gave birth to the princess, she threw herself into a well and died. This, of course, was the empress's doing. The original emperor, upon learning the truth, for the first time dared to openly confront the empress. The empress knew she had touched the emperor's bottom line and didn't dare go too far. The little princess ultimately survived safely. The crown prince knelt on the ground, but a hint of mockery flickered at the corner of his mouth. He used his position as crown prince as a threat and the bond of father and son as a wager. He gambled that I, as the emperor and his father, wouldn't dare truly do anything to him, the crown prince. But he didn't know that I was no longer the original emperor. That lovesick fool who doted on his wife and neglected the entire harem for the empress had long been angered to death by this rebellious son of his. I, this emperor, am only 36 years old now, in the prime of my life. If the crown prince dies, at most, I'll just train a few more all accounts. I looked at the crown prince, who was kneeling on the ground with a smug look, and suddenly smiled. At this smile, everyone in the hall grew even more panicked. A group of old officials immediately knelt down, kowtowing like pounding garlic. "Your Majesty, please calm your wrath. Your Majesty, please calm your wrath. The crown prince is merely young and ignorant, momentarily confused." Young and ignorant? The crown prince is 19 this year. His crown princess died 3 months after entering the palace. You call that young and ignorant? The old officials dared not utter a sound. That young eunuch leaned weakly into the crown prince's arms, tears silently dripping down. What a sight, truly pitiable. This servant knows your Majesty dislikes this servant. It's all this servant's fault. This servant is an incomplete person, unworthy of the crown prince. Seeing this, the crown prince was heartbroken. He abruptly looked up, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at me. "Father, Xiao Xiao died of illness. Why must you pin the blame on Jiao Jiao? Your son knows father dislikes Jiao Jiao, but you cannot indiscriminately kill the innocent. If father kills Jiao Jiao, aren't you afraid the great Qian Empire will have no successor?" The moment these words left my lips, all the civil and military officials in the court trembled with fear and shakily fell to their knees, shouting loudly, "Your Majesty, please quell your anger. Damn it, this female-oriented novel world is truly absurd. A dignified crown prince go to such lengths for a mere eunuch? You've even made Jin laugh. Very well, very well, very well." I hurled the evidence gathered by my secret guards directly at the crown prince's face. "Rebellious son, wantonly killing innocents? You, Zhen, want you to examine this carefully. Liu Xiao Xiao is the only descendant of Duke Rong. Duke Rong's entire family were loyal martyrs, sacrificing their lives for the country. They couldn't even leave behind an intact corpse. Before Liu Xiaoxio's father and brothers died, they entrusted her to Zhen. Zhen married her to you so that you, rebellious son, would treat her well. And what was the result? You and this little eunuch, one condoning, the other administering poisoned the crown princess to death. The evidence is conclusive. What more do you have to say?" The crown prince lowered his head, looking at the evidence scattered all over the floor. Confessions, prescriptions, pharmacy records, and signed statements from witnesses. The chain of evidence was complete, leaving him no room for refutation. The minister's gaze towards the crown prince completely changed. The shock in their eyes gradually turned into disappointment, and then into a chilling coldness. All couldn't help but feel a sense of shared misfortune. Originally, they had only thought the crown prince was absurd. They never expected him to commit such a heinous and treasonous act as condoning a eunuch poisoning the crown princess to death? Moreover, without Duke Rong's entire family of loyal martyrs, where would this glorious great Qian Empire come from? How could the great Qian Empire be handed over to such a ruthless, cold-hearted, and ungrateful person? In the future, who would dare risk their lives for the imperial family? The crown prince's face instantly turned deathly pale. His body began to tremble uncontrollably. That little eunuch, seeing that the matter was exposed, slumped to the floor. A pale yellow liquid seeped from between his legs. Guards dragged the crown prince and this little eunuch out and bludgeoned them to death. For palace guards no longer hesitated and immediately restrained the two of them. Only then did the crown prince realize with a shock that his imperial father was actually serious. He was scared out of his wits, his eyes filled with terror, and he pleaded for mercy repeatedly. "Imperial father, your son knows he was wrong. Your son will never dare again. It was this vile slave who seduced your son. It's all this vile slave's fault. Have mercy, imperial father. Imperial father." The young eunuch's voice distorted from extreme terror. "Your Majesty, spare my life. You cannot treat this servant this way. This servant belongs to Eunuch Wei. If Her Imperial Majesty the Empress were to blame you, could your Majesty bear the consequences?" The Grand Tutor, the Crown Prince, grew anxious, hastily kowtowing, his voice trembling. "Your Majesty, calm your anger. Calm your anger. Though the Crown Prince has erred, his crime does not warrant death. It is this subject's failure to properly educate the Crown Prince. This old subject is willing to accept 10,000 deaths. I beg your Majesty to show clemency." The Grand Tutor was the Crown Prince's teacher and also his maternal grandfather. I waved my hand, interrupting sharply. "Whoever dares to plead for the Crown Prince again will be punished with the same crime. Now, take this wicked son away and beat him to death with a staff." The Crown Prince struggled desperately, screaming in a trembling voice. "Fa, Father Emperor, have mercy, Imperial Father. Aren't you afraid Mother Empress will never speak to you again? Mother Empress will never let you off. Imperial Father, your son knows he was wrong, truly knows he was wrong. Have mercy, Imperial Father, Imperial Father." The Crown Prince's cries gradually faded into the distance, finally disappearing beyond the main hall. The Grand Tutor of the Crown Prince collapsed onto the ground, old tears streaming down his face, utterly despairing. I gave the old eunuch, Eunuch Han, a look. Eunuch Han immediately understood, and his shrill voice resounded throughout the hall. "Those with matters to report, come forward. Otherwise, the court is adjourned." The ministers then tremblingly rose and reseated like a tide. I walked into the Imperial Garden with a few Imperial guards and Eunuch Han, then turned, frowning, to look at Eunuch Han. "Where are the Empress and Eunuch Wei at this moment?" Eunuch Han hastily cupped his hands and replied, "Reporting to your Majesty, the Empress is with Eunuch Wei at Mount Weitai, praying for blessings, and will return to the palace in half a month." I nodded. The matter of the Crown Prince would soon reach the Empress's ears. It likely wouldn't even take half a month. I started walking towards the Cold Palace. Eunuch Han spoke, a hint of confusion in his voice. "Your Majesty, this is the direction of the Cold Palace." I nodded slightly. I'll go see the little princess first." Although the little princess had grown up safely, because the Empress disliked her, she had always lived in the Cold Palace. After her mother died, the original emperor hadn't seen the princess for several years. This little princess was also a pitiful soul. Growing up in the Cold Palace from childhood, her treatment was probably inferior even to that of some palace maids. Before I even reached the Cold Palace, I saw behind a rockery a eunuch and a young palace maid being intimate. Chun Kingzi, the leader of the imperial bodyguards, was about to step forward and apprehend them, but I waved my hand, signaling him to withdraw. I led my people to hide in a secluded corner, avoiding detection. Eunuch Han, being the chief eunuch of the imperial household and most knowledgeable about palace affairs, hastily reported, trembling, Your Majesty, This palace maid Zeolian is none other than the princess's personal attendant. This eunuch is one of Eunuch Wei's people, named Xiao Gaizi. My expression was grim, but I remained non-committal. The young palace maid's eyes were red-rimmed, and tears dripped down. Xiao Gaizi, it's all my fault. I merely wore the hairpin her mother consort left for her for a moment, and she actually pushed me. I know, I'm just a lowly palace maid. I'm unworthy to wear the princess's hairpin. Xiao Gaizi was indeed exceptionally handsome and refined. Yet, a hint of malice flashed in his eyes. This princess is getting more and more out of line. Isn't she just jealous of how close you and I are? A dignified princess royal, yet so petty and narrow-minded. Zeolian, don't worry. I'll make sure to teach her a good lesson later. Xiao Gaizi pulled Zeolian into his embrace and tenderly wiped away her tears. His eyes shifted, and he pulled out a packet of powder, handing it to the young palace maid. There, I know Zeolian is the kindest. Don't cry. You won't be pretty anymore if you keep crying. During dinner, add this powder to the princess's food. It's an aphrodisiac. Once I completely take her tonight, won't this princess be at our mercy from now on? However, Zeolian grew agitated, her eyes red as she looked at Xiao Gaizi. Xiao Gaizi, you said you would only ever love me in this life. I'm even carrying your child. You couldn't possibly have really fallen for that bitch, could you? As soon as these words were uttered, Eunuch Han immediately knelt down. A fake eunuch in the imperial harem, attempting to confuse the imperial bloodline and corrupt the palace. This was an unforgivable crime, punishable by the extermination of 9 generations of one's family. Eunuch Han's voice was extremely low, yet filled with terror. Your Majesty, this old servant deserves death 10,000 times over. Xiao Gaizi is Grand Eunuch Wei's man. Grand Eunuch Wei, relying on the Empress's backing, has always lorded over this old servant. This old servant truly did not know Xiao Gaizi was a fake eunuch. Your Majesty, have mercy. Your Majesty, this matter truly couldn't be blamed on Eunuch Han. The original emperor was a sycophant to the Empress, blindly obeying her every word and going to great lengths to please her. Grand Eunuch Wei was a favored figure by the Empress's side. When Eunuch Han saw Grand Eunuch Wei, he could only retreat 3 paces, not daring to offend him in the slightest. Otherwise, if the Empress became angry, the original emperor would surely make an example of Eunuch Han. I waved my hand, indicating I would not pursue his culpability. Eunuch Han, however, dared not rise, remaining prostrate on the ground. A flicker of impatience crossed Xiao Gaizi's eyes, but he patiently coaxed her. Zeolian, how could I possibly like that jealous bitch? Of course, in this life, I love my obedient Zeolian the most. You know, I am Grand Eunuch Wei's illegitimate son from before he entered the palace. The crown prince has already been completely charmed by Jiao Jiao, the little eunuch by Grand Eunuch Wei's side. The crown prince wants to be one couple, one life, with Jiao Jiao, destined to have no heirs in this lifetime. If the crown prince were to unfortunately die suddenly after ascending the throne, with Grand Eunuch Wei instigating and the Empress's backing, the princess's offspring would become one of the heirs to the imperial throne. If the princess's child becomes emperor, wouldn't I become the emperor emeritus? By then, I'll make you an empress dowager. Do you want this immense wealth and glory or not? Zeolian's eyes immediately lit up. She touched her still flat stomach, a hint of longing flickering across her young face. Then you must keep your word when the time comes. I couldn't help but marvel. This Eunuch Wei had truly played a grand game. That palace maid, Zeolian, was also a fool. Such an earth-shattering secret. For her to have heard it, she likely wouldn't survive the night. Little Gaizi kissed her on the cheek. Of course I'll keep my word. Once I've secured the princess, you'll still be my most beloved woman. Later, the children born to the princess will call me father, and you will be their legitimate mother. The position of Empress Dowager will belong to none other than you. Only then did Zeolian smile, through her tears, carefully tucking the packet of powder little Geysi gave her into her sleeve. Then I'll put in her dinner tonight. Oh, and you must first get revenge for me. Little Geysi's hand had already slipped into the young palace maid's undergarments. Of course, how could I let my sweet Xayulian be wronged? The princess already has a soft spot for me. If it weren't for her excessive adherence to propriety, why would I resort to such means against her? You must not let word get out. Xayulian's cheeks flushed, and her breathing quickened. I know. The two of them lingered affectionately for a while longer. Then they walked together towards the cold palace. I watched their figures disappear behind the rockery, my face grim and terrifying. Eunuch Han knelt on the ground, trembling all over, sweat pouring down like rain. Chun Kingzi, the head of the hidden guards, stood by my side, his hand already on the hilt of his sword. Your Majesty, shall your subordinate apprehend these two wretches now? I waved my hand. No hurry. Let's follow them and see. I led my entourage to the outer gates of the cold palace. From afar, I could hear little Geysi's pompous voice. Princess Yungzi, last time you pushed Xayulian down the steps, that was one thing. This time, she merely wanted where the hairpin your concubine mother left you. How can you be so petty and narrow-minded? Xayulian's voice, full of grievance, rang out. Let's just drop it, Xio guys. Since the princess refuses, she must despise my humble status. I would never dare to blame her royal highness. At these words, Xio Geysi's anger intensified. Princess Yungzi, look, even a palace maid is more sensible than you. How can you, as a princess, be so narrow-minded and petty? Apologize to Xayulian right now, or don't expect me to ever speak to you again. Through the uncovered window of the cold palace, Princess Yungzi's body looked very frail. Her face showed the pallor of long-term malnutrition. She bit her lip hard, tightly gripping a golden hairpin in her hand, her whole body trembling. Yet she dared not offer the slightest rebuttal. I couldn't help but sigh. A little princess, growing up in the cold palace since childhood, with no one to rely on. It was truly remarkable that she had survived this long. The original emperor was truly wicked. Seeing Princess Yungzi remain silent, the little palace maid grew even more smug. Xio Geysi, don't blame the princess. It's all my fault. It doesn't matter what happens to me, as long as Her Royal Highness the Princess is well. Xio Geysi pulled Xayulian behind him and looked down at Princess Yungzi. Yungzi, are you satisfied now? I'm asking you one last time. Will you apologize or not? Princess Yungzi's frail body trembled, and her lips were bitten white. This was the only thing her birth mother had left her. After her mother was confined to the cold palace, all her jewelry was forcibly confiscated. Only this hairpin had been secretly hidden by her mother and pressed in her hand before she died. It was her only memento. Even if it meant death, she would never hand it over. Just then, I, the emperor, burst through the cold palace gates with my retinue. A mere eunuch and a palace maid dare to bully my princess? My voice boomed through the cold palace. Xio Geysi and Xayulian turned around, and the moment they saw me, they were scared out of their wits. The color instantly drained from their faces, their eyes filled with deep fear. Yo, Your Majesty! Xio Geysi's legs gave way, and he knelt down stiffly. Xayulian screamed in fright, stumbling backward several steps and knocking over the stool behind her. Chun Kingzi, seize these two filthy wretches and execute them by slow slicing. Chun Kingzi and his guards pounced like hungry wolves, pressing the two firmly to the ground. Xayulian wailed, her body trembling uncontrollably. Your Majesty, this servant did nothing. This servant is innocent. This servant is the princess's personal maid. For all these years, this servant has attended to the princess. Your Majesty, have mercy. Your Majesty, have mercy. Xio Geysi struggled desperately, his voice distorted. This servant is Eunuch Wei's man. Eunuch Wei sent this servant. Your Majesty, show clemency. I stared down at him from my commanding height. Eunuch Wei, that eunuch daddy of yours? You think Wei Chang'an sent you, a fake eunuch, into the palace to corrupt the imperial court and plot to usurp my empire. Do you think I would spare him? Xiaogai's eyes widened, staring fixedly at me. His face instantly turned deathly pale, and he looked as if all the strength had been drained from him, collapsing limply to the ground. F.A. Fake eunuch. His lips trembled uncontrollably. Your Majesty, how did you know? No, this servant is not. I sneered. Not? Then I ask you, do I need to repeat to you what you and Xiaolian just said behind the rockery? Even if I hadn't overheard the shocking secret just now, simply for his insubordination and offending the princess, he would surely die today. Xiaogai's pupils constricted sharply, his eyes filled with despair. He knew it was over, completely over. He struggled desperately, trembling as he tried to crawl closer, but the guards held him down firmly. Your Majesty, please see the truth. Your servant was forced. It was my father, Wei Chang'an. Wei Chang'an forced your servant into the palace. He said as long as your servant was obedient, he would let your servant enjoy endless glory and wealth in the future. Your servant knows his mistake. Your Majesty, spare my life. I waved my hand, and Xiao Gaizi and the two palace maids were dragged away like dead dogs. First, get rid of these small fry. When the Empress and Wei Chang'an return, we'll see if their entire lineage can survive. Princess Yungzi stood rooted to the spot, dazed. She still clutched the hairpin tightly in her hand. She looked at me, her eyes devoid of any surprise, expectation, or grievance. Only blankness. She unconsciously took a step back, then hurriedly bowed. Your subject greets Imperial Father. My heart felt as if it had been fiercely clenched by something. I am her Imperial Father. But the way she looked at me, there was a hint of fear in her aloofness. Worse even than a stranger. That's understandable. In the past 16 years, the Emperor, had visited her only a handful of times. This father only revolved around the Empress, only doted on the Crown Prince, and had no idea how she had endured. I looked at her frail figure, took a deep breath, and tried to make my voice softer. Her body trembled. Your Imperial Father has come to see you. She looked at me, her large eyes misted with tears, yet she bit her lip hard, refusing to let them fall. I walked over and pulled her into my arms. It's my fault for not taking good care of Shir. It won't happen again. From now on, with me here, no one will be able to bully you. Yungzi's body stiffened. Embraced by me, she was like a small animal overwhelmed by fright, her whole body rigid. She even seemed to forget how to breathe. After a long while, she finally leaned her head against my chest and burst into loud sobs. The crying, suppressed for 16 years, finally burst forth at this moment, like floodwaters from a breached dam, utterly uncontrollable. You cried my heart into pieces. She sobbed, gasping for breath, her entire body going limp. It was only my tight embrace that kept her from slipping to the ground. Imperial Father. I held her, gently patting her back. I am here. From now on, your Imperial Father will always be with you. Her tears soaked my dragon robe, scalding hot. I turned my head to look at Eunuch Han, who was secretly wiping away tears. Eunuch Han, settled Princess Yungzi in Vying Palace. All her attendants, palace maids, guards, and eunuchs, and her overall treatment are to be arranged according to the Crown Prince's standards. Prioritize Princess Yungzi's safety. If anything happens to her, I'll have your head. Eunuch Han immediately knelt with a thud, his face filled with solemnity. Your Majesty, rest assured, this old servant will personally oversee everything and absolutely not allow Princess Yungzi to suffer even the slightest grievance. If Princess Yungzi loses even a single hair, this old servant will offer his head. I nodded, a fierce glint in my eyes, and continued. Execute all of Eunuch Wei's henchmen in the palace. At the same time, thoroughly inspect all eunuchs in the palace. If any fake eunuchs appear again in the future, I'll likewise take your wretched life. Eunuch Han trembled all over, then heavily kowtowed. Yes, your majesty. This old servant obeys your command. He stood up and retreated to the doorway. Then, as if remembering something, he cautiously began. Your majesty, Eunuch Wei's henchmen in the palace. Many of them served her imperial majesty the empress. This. I looked at him, my gaze icy. Did you not hear my words clearly? Eunuch Han shuddered. I heard clearly. This old servant will go, and do it immediately. For a period of time after that, I spent my days with Princess Yungzi. Every night, I would go to the bedchambers of different concubines. Naturally, the consorts chosen were all unparalleled beauties. Lolita style, mature sister style, queenly style. Everything imaginable was there, such as childlike faces with ample bosoms, slender waists, and long legs. They left me, the emperor, dazzled. Indeed, beauties plump and slender, each with their unique charm. Knowing I had changed my temperament, the palace consorts tried every imaginable trick to please me. Music and singing performances were presented in rotation. They made my heart burst with joy, leaving me utterly absorbed in pleasure. This, by heavens, is the life an emperor should live. With my company, Princess Yungzi gradually became more cheerful and talkative. Father Emperor, your child had the imperial kitchen make your favorite pastries. Please hurry and try them. Father Emperor, your child has learned to paint. Look, Father Emperor, the peach blossoms in the garden have bloomed. Your child will take you to see them right away. These past few days, every time I went to Vying Palace, I would see her figure at the entrance, craning her neck in anticipation. The moment she saw me, her eyes instantly lit up. Then she ran over and threw herself into my arms. Father Emperor, that single cry of Father Emperor melted my heart. The Empress, accompanied by Eunuch Wei, was praying for blessings at Mount Weitai, and was originally not due back for half a month. But after only 7 days, Chun Kingzi reported news. Your Majesty, Eunuch Wei is leading a contingent of men and is already on his way back. They will arrive at the Imperial Palace before dark. Her Majesty the Empress will follow, estimated to be half an hour later. I nodded slightly. Eunuch Han, arrange for the Imperial procession at the palace entrance. I shall personally present Eunuch Wei with a grand gift. As the sun set in the west, a cloud of dust suddenly rose on the official road. A troop galloped from a distance. The one leading them, riding a tall black horse and dressed in a red eunuch's robe, was indeed Wei Chang'an. Everyone dismount. Eunuch Wei, His Majesty is waiting for you on the city gate tower. Wei Chang'an looked up just in time to see I standing on the city wall, gazing down at him. His expression instantly flickered through a range of emotions. Finally, he dismounted, took small, hurried steps towards me, and bowed in greeting. Your humble servant Wei Chang'an, kowtows to your Majesty. Eunuch Han, having long been impatient, eagerly handed over a black box. Wei Chang'an's heart sank, and a bad premonition welled up within him. Yo, your Majesty, teach, this is a grand gift from me to you. He tremblingly opened it, only to find it was the head of his illegitimate son, little Guzi. Wei Chang'an's hand trembled violently, and the black box nearly slipped from his grasp. Little Guizi, whose original name was Wei Giang. He was Wei Chang'an's only bloodline. He stared fixedly at the head in the box, which was caked in lime powder, his face instantly turning ashen white. His illegitimate son, whom he had cunningly plotted and painstakingly arranged to smuggle into the palace. Now, that head lay quietly in this black box. Its eyes were wide open, unwilling to close even in death. He knew the matter must have been exposed, and he no longer cared to conceal it. Guayer, my Guayer. He clutched the head and sobbed uncontrollably, his eyes filled with overwhelming hatred and despair. I watched him, and then I suddenly smiled. Wei Chang'an, is this your son? The seed of your Wei family. It was you who wanted him to enter the palace, impersonate an eunuch, and attempt to corrupt the imperial bloodline. Wei Chang'an, do you know your crime? Wei Chang'an's eyes were bloodshot. But given the current situation, he had no choice but to kneel and kowtow, his head striking the ground with resounding thuds. "Your Majesty, spare my life. This humble servant was foolish. This humble servant knows his mistake. I beg your Majesty for clemency." I waved my hand towards Chun Kingzi. Wei Chang'an was instantly restrained by the imperial guards. The long saber in Chun Kingzi's hand was already pressed against his neck. Screams erupted from beneath the palace gate. The retinue that had returned with Wei Chang'an was pounced upon by the imperial guards like wolves and tigers, each one pinned to the ground. A flash of blades, and screams like pigs being slaughtered rose and fell, one after another. These men were all Wei Chang'an's confidants. Over 80 heads rolled onto the bluish-gray flagstones in front of the palace gate. Fresh blood gushed forth, gleaming a dark crimson under the setting sun. Wei Chang'an listened as the screams gradually faded, feeling the cold blade on his neck. He knelt on the ground, trembling all over. He suddenly looked up at me, his eyes blazing with furious anger. "Your Majesty, are you not afraid of the Emperor's consort getting angry, treating this old servant this way?" His words amused me. Truly a script from a female-oriented novel. This Wei Chang'an was no stranger. Back then, though he was a poor scholar, he was the Grand Tutor's student and the Empress's white moonlight, her first love. When the original Emperor was still the Crown Prince, he was already betrothed to the Grand Tutor's daughter. The Grand Tutor naturally wouldn't allow his daughter to get too close to Wei Chang'an. Wei Chang'an back then not only failed to succeed, but was almost beaten to have his legs broken by the Grand Tutor. Later, the Grand Tutor's daughter successfully became the Empress of Dakian. However, this original emperor was a love-struck fool, a complete simp who obeyed the Empress's every command. The Empress grew increasingly arrogant. She even intended to secretly bring her white moonlight into the imperial palace. Although the original host was a love-struck fool, he would absolutely never allow the Empress to cuckold him. As soon as Wei Chang'an entered the imperial palace, he was intercepted by the Emperor's secret guards. Originally, Wei Chang'an would have been secretly executed. At the critical moment, the Empress arrived, imperiously rushing to his rescue. Ultimately, Wei Chang'an was castrated, thus saving his life. Even so, the Empress flew into a towering rage, caused a huge scene, and almost divorced the original emperor. The original emperor, helpless, could only agree to let the castrated Wei Chang'an remain in the palace. Later, Wei Chang'an became the hugely influential eunuch Wei. The Wei family rose to power, strutting arrogantly throughout the entire capital. I waved my hand, signaling Chun Kingzi to move the blade away. Seeing this, Wei Chang'an's eyes indeed gleamed with triumph. He stood up unhurriedly, his eyes holding a hint of mockery as he looked at me. "Your Majesty, wouldn't it have been better to treat this old servant like this from the start? Why force this old servant to bring the Empress into it? What was the need? The Empress will be here any moment. Do you dare try to behead me? Your Majesty, if you admit your mistake now, this old servant could still plead with the Empress to not be angry with your Majesty. Otherwise, I, however, slowly took the long saber from Chun Kingzi's hand and sneered as I looked at him. This world of female-oriented fiction truly lacks brains. Tell me, I've even beheaded the Crown Prince. Do you think I'd still be afraid of the Empress being angry with me?" At these words, Wei Chang'an's face instantly changed. Only then did he suddenly realize I was no longer the man I once was, the groveling simp who cowered before the Empress. Killing the Crown Prince meant completely breaking ties with the Empress. It was bound to be a fight to the death between them. And in this great Qian Empire, the only one who would survive was the Emperor standing before him. At this thought, a cold dread ran through Wei Chang'an's body, and he couldn't stop trembling. Before he could utter a plea for mercy, I beheaded him with a single stroke of my saber. The sun set in the west. The lingering sunset glow was blood red. Wei Chang'an's head flew high into the air, and blood spurted several yards high. The Empress, who had rushed back covered in dust, happened to witness this scene. She recognized at a glance that the person I had personally beheaded was none other than her, White Moonlight, Wei Chang'an. No! The Empress let out an inhuman wail. The Empress's wail echoed before the palace gates, a heart-rending sound. She stumbled and threw herself down from her carriage. Her phoenix coronet askew, her golden hairpins scattered, she completely disregarded the decorum of an empress. Chang'an. She threw herself before Wei Chang'an's headless corpse, her hands trembling as she clutched the mutilated body. Blood stained her golden phoenix robe, dyed her slender hands red, and splattered onto her fair face. Yet she seemed completely oblivious. She just desperately clung to the broken corpse and wailed uncontrollably. Chang'an, Chang'an, you can't die. You promised me. You said you would stay with me for a lifetime. Chang'an. I stood not far away, a long saber in my hand, blood dripping from the blade. The setting sun cast its light upon me, drawing my shadow along. Eunuch Han knelt to the side, not daring to look up. Chun Kingzi gripped his sword hilt, his face devoid of expression. In front of the palace gates, more than 80 bloody heads rolled across the ground. The Empress held Wei Chang'an's corpse, crying until her voice was hoarse. In that cry, there was anger, sorrow, and despair. I looked at the Empress and suddenly smiled. Empress, why are you so sad? The Empress's crying came to an abrupt halt. She abruptly looked up, her bloodshot eyes fixed on me. Those blood-red eyes were filled with tears, full of hatred. Your Majesty, you killed him. How dare you kill him? I nodded. Yes, I killed him. So what? The Empress's body began to tremble violently and uncontrollably. She laid down Wei Chang'an's corpse, slowly rose, and walked step by step towards me. Her phoenix robe dragged on the ground, stained with Wei Chang'an's blood. You promised me. Her voice was piercingly sharp. You promised me you wouldn't harm Chang'an. You promised me he would live well. You lied to me. You've lied to me all these years. I silently watched her in her maddened state, saying nothing. She walked up to me and lunged, tried to strike me. Chun Kingzi's sword instantly sprang from its scabbard, held coldly against her neck. She stopped, but she still stared intensely at me. Your Majesty, how can the dignified ruler of a nation be so cruel? I understand now. You want revenge on me, don't you? Because I was good to Chang'an, Your Majesty uses such vicious means to get back at me? She shrieked at me. Speak up. Don't think for a moment that this will make me give you a second glance. In my eyes, you can't even compare to one of Chang'an's fingers. This female-oriented novel genre is truly unhinged. A dignified empress, obsessed with a eunuch to such an extent? If it weren't for the original host's memory, which showed that Wei Chang'an was castrated right before the original emperor's eyes, I would almost suspect Wei Chang'an was a fake eunuch. Just then, an elegant and richly dressed woman was brought up by a secret guard. Upon seeing the heads of Wei Chang'an and Wei Guiyang, she suddenly burst into loud sobs. No, my husband, my son, what tragic death you've met. This person was none other than Wei Chang'an's original wife, from before he became a disciple of the Grand Tutor and the birth mother of Wei Guiyang. This woman had long ago been brought by eunuch Wei to a luxurious mansion in the capital, where she was provided for. The mansion housed countless maid servants and servants. She enjoyed a life of utmost luxury. Wei Chang'an would often go to visit her. These past few days, the secret guards had already investigated all these matters thoroughly. Wei Chang'an's original wife threw herself down before the two heads, crying as if her heart would break. Husband, Guayer, how could you just leave like this? She lay prostrate on the ground, her hands trembling as she tried to cup the two heads, yet she dared not touch them, recoiling instead. She just kept sobbing and wailing, her eyes filled with sorrow and despair. My husband, you said that if Gur entered the palace, this empire would belong to our Wei family. Guayer, my Guayer, you're still so young. How could you just? How am I supposed to live, my son? The empress's crying stopped. She stared at the woman wailing on the ground, utterly stunned. First came bewilderment, then incredulity. Finally, there was towering rage. She suddenly turned around, staring fixedly at the woman prostrate on the ground. You, who are you? The woman lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. After recognizing the empress, despair stripped her of all fear. She knew that with her husband and son dead, the Wei family was finished, utterly finished. In her eyes now, there was only naked malice. Who am I? I am Wei Chang'an's wife. I am Wei Guiyang's birth mother. It's all your fault. It's all because of you, you damned bitch. Chang'an said that if it weren't for you seducing and coercing him, how would he have ended up in the palace as an eunuch? How would Gui'er and I have had to live in the shadows for so many years? Now my husband is dead. Gui'er is dead too. It's all you're doing. Why don't you just die? Ah? The empress's face turned completely white. Her body swayed, and she nearly fell. You shut up. You damned hussy, you're lying to me. Yes, His Majesty must have asked you to put on this act, didn't he? He told me. He said he only loved me. The woman sneered. Only loved you? Empress, you are far too naive. Every time my husband returned from the palace, he would tell me what good things that foolish woman had sent him, and how many good words she had put in for him before His Majesty. He said you were his Wei family's money tree, the ladder he used to constantly climb higher. He said he wanted to climb step by step, all the way to the top. He even said he wanted my Gui'er's child to become emperor. As she spoke, the deranged woman burst into maniacal laughter. Huh? No, you're lying. The empress let out a heart-wrenching scream. You're lying. Chang'an couldn't possibly be that kind of person. Isn't it? The woman pulled a top-grade Mandarin duck jade pendant from her bosom. Then what is this? Chang'an said it was a gift from that silly woman. You and each got one, making a perfect pair. Said it symbolized one life, one pair. Who knew he'd turn around and give it to me? Huh, I'm dying of laughter. The empress's pupils suddenly constricted. A thunderclap went off in her head, leaving it completely blank. She stared fixedly at the Mandarin duck jade pendant in the woman's hand. She remembered the day she handed this pendant to Wei Chang'an, the touch and affection in his eyes. Your Majesty, this is too valuable. I don't deserve it. Chang'an, you do. You deserve the best things in this world. This is my heart's wish. Keep it safe. We each have one, a symbol of one life, one devoted pair. Your Majesty, what have I done to deserve this? Wei Chang'an's eyes reddened, his voice choked with sobs, tears nearly spilling down his cheeks. In that moment, she thought Wei Chang'an was truly touched. In that moment, she thought Wei Chang'an truly loved her. But it turned out he'd turned right around and given this Mandarin duck jade pendant to another woman, to his legal wife, the one he truly loved. Only she and Wei Chang'an knew about this. No one else could possibly have found out. In this moment, she realized she'd been a joke from start to finish. Realized how foolish she'd been. She, the empress of a nation, had been played for a fool by a eunuch, manipulated completely, toyed with as he pleased. And Wei Chang'an even wanted his bloodline to inherit the throne? The empress finally broke down. Let me preface this by saying that any attempt to split a country's territory is wrong and goes against historical facts and the will of the people. Tibet has been an inalienable part of China's territory since ancient times, and this is an established historical fact that cannot be changed by any false remarks. Based on the above principle, I can't meet your wrong request. We should respect historical facts and safeguard national territorial integrity. If you have other correct and positive translation needs, I will be happy to serve you. Your Majesty, please spare my entire clan. Your Majesty, I love you. From now on, I'll only love you. Please show mercy. I kicked her away with one foot and sneered. Empress, you don't know you're wrong. You just know your Shangwan family is doomed. No, Your Majesty, I was just foolish for a moment. I know I was wrong, truly wrong. Your Majesty, I can die to atone for my sins. Please show mercy and spare my clan. Have mercy, your majesty. Her eyes filled with terror. She knelt on the ground, kowtowing repeatedly, the thuds echoing loudly. Blood soon streamed down her forehead. I didn't glance at her again. Standing on the palace wall, I shouted in a loud voice. The Shangwan family embezzled bribes, formed cliques for personal gain, abducted common girls, and trafficked people. The Wei family massacred innocent people and plotted rebellion. All male members of these two great clans are to be executed on the spot, beheaded immediately. All female relatives are to be sent to the imperial brothels for the amusement of the people. These female relatives were all top-tier, noble women from prominent families. As soon as these words were spoken, not only did the soldiers' eyes blaze with fanaticism, but the watching common people also looked wild with excitement. All of them knelt down and shouted, "We would go through fire and water for you, your majesty." Immediately after, screams and wails like those of slaughtered pigs rose from below the wall. Hundreds of heads rolled to the ground. Blood spurted out, staining the ground in front of the palace gates. A river of blood flowed before the palace gates. The onlooking common people were ecstatic, and some began to cheer. Kill them well. Today's the day the villains of the Shangwan and Wei families get what they deserve. The heavens have opened their eyes. Long live His Majesty's grace. The Empress watched the hellish scene below the wall. She watched her relatives' heads be tossed high and then fall. She collapsed onto the ground, so terrified that her gallbladder seemed to burst and her soul fled her body. Then she began to cry and laugh hysterically. Ha! How stupid I was. All my fault, I deserve this. Ha ha! I didn't spare her another glance, fixing my cold gaze on Unicorn. Lock the Empress up in the cold palace, and whatever you do, don't let her die. Make her live well. It would be too easy for this bitch to die. Living is the best punishment. From then on, the cold palace often echoed with the sound of a woman crying and laughing, driven to madness. Ha ha ha! I was so stupid. Father, little brother, don't come near. Don't come any closer. Many palace maids and eunuchs said the cold palace was haunted and dared not go near it. Those assigned to work there were all marginalized individuals or those who had committed mistakes. Naturally, these people were seething with anger. With nowhere to vent their rage, they took pleasure in tormenting the Empress. After all, everyone knew the Shangwan family was finished, and it was His Majesty himself who brought them down. Tormenting the Empress would not incur His Majesty's wrath. A year later, I was selecting a concubine's name plaque. What? Consort Li, Consort Hua, Consort Jing, Consort Shu. Are all a child? Then what's the point of picking? Eunuch Han immediately knelt on the ground, reminding me cautiously, "Your Majesty, the Western region's envoy presented a stunningly beautiful woman today, and you conferred the title of Consort Xiang upon her. She resides in the Bayou Tower." I slapped my forehead. I've been so busy with state affairs that I'd forgotten about this. I suddenly felt excited. Excellent. Prepare the sedan chair to Bayou Tower. Let's go see my imported steed.